Okay, this is just a vlog for like a sort of journal for myself, just to remember a few things that I was struggling with in Blender, because I normally work in Maya. I had to come into Blender and sort of modify and reanimate the mount and dismount for um, this character, because the character is no longer mounting and dismounting a larger horse, it's mounting and dismounting a pony, so that had to be modified and reanimated in some scenes, in some instances. So one thing I learned is um, the controls, the Z controls. Sometimes when I wanted to move it around, it wouldn't let me move it up and down. And just ignore the fact that it's quite laggy. I find that Blender's UI or components, when I move them around, they're quite laggy. But just general panning and rotating is quite fast. So I don't know what's up with Blender, but sure. Um, so here you can see um, there's actually like an offset. This is called an influencer. I guess it's kind of like some kind of constraint or locator in Maya. Um, I'm just learning as I go. So this influencer prevented me from moving the foot rig control up and down in some instances. So I just had to make sure that I just moved these keyframes around left and right in the timeline here in the graph editor, so it didn't restrict me. This offset was created by the original animator. Essentially, it's for when the rider gets up on the horse. He's created this sort of influencer. It's an offset, but if I try to move the foot at the, it's kind of like sometimes try to counter this offset, and trying to move the foot rig produced zero results. I just defined this influencer here in the graph editor, and just adjust the keyframes so that it was beneficial and it wasn't countering me. So when I press play, you'll see it. It's purely when the rider gets up on the horse and down from the horse. So you can see up on the horse is that offset or that influencer, and then getting off again. Okay, so that's a workaround for that. Also, if you find that you want to sort of keep something in a static position, so let's just say the hands are now in a fixed position, you don't want them to be moving around, you can let's just click on that hand rig control. You can just copy that keyframe, Control C, and then you go to the next keyframe and you can Control V and paste it in place. Um, Sometimes it gives you an error when you paste. It's like a memory buffer error. A workaround on that is just right-clicking on that previous keyframe and saying copy, and then clicking on the new one and then saying paste. And also sometimes if you copy and paste an existing exactly the same keyframe and you find that it offsets, once again that's usually an influencer causing that problem. You can adjust the influencer, or you can just manually just adjust your new keyframe to be similar to the last. Um, and lastly, if you have exactly the same keyframes and they're all in the same place, but you find the hand or whatever bone or recontrol is jittering around, just come have a look in your graph editor for weird sort of spikes. Sometimes the spikes are necessary; it's actually part of the animation. Sometimes they're actually just, how can I say, uh, destructive sort of keyframes causing the jittering, and you can just remove those. Generally, I like to just keep it clean. So if it's going from one keyframe to another, I try to remove all the in-between unnecessary. Yeah, you can see all these unnecessary keyframes. I try to remove those, but these generally aren't causing jittering in Blender. It's more the sort of almost like heartbeat spikes. Um, those are the ones to look out for if you're finding jittering in your animation. But don't just remove any kind of spike that you see, because some of them are actually part of your animation. But just look out for them. You'll see them. They'll stick out like a sore thumb, and you can just clean those up. If you do need to clean up any keyframes, another thing you can do. So let's just use this as an example, but I don't believe this is problematic. So you can just right-click on that handle, and go free, and you can just straighten this out, and we do the same thing for this side. Break that to free, and we can straighten that out, and that's sort of apart from deleting the keyframes, you can also kind of just straighten things out that way by breaking the handles. Now another thing is when I try to export, it kept exporting as an empty FBX file. There was no animation in there. So what I was doing, I was just selecting the stack, that's sort of the bones, and I was going File, Export, FBX, said Selected Objects, and I exported, and you can see here's a whole bunch of sort of pretty much empty FBX files. How I had to sort of get it working is I'm going to hold in Shift now and click this little arrow, and it's going to expand the entire stack. I had to do that. Now I'm going to let go Shift. I'm going to normal click on top, scroll all the way down, and then Shift and left click to the bottom. So I've selected everything within that stack. Then I go File, Export, and that actually I would actually see that it would actually export some contents. You can see there it's 489 kilobytes. It still wasn't exporting the animation properly. So the next thing I had to do, just make sure you enable select objects, is under bake animation I had to just turn off NLA strips and all actions, and then you can see there it exported as 1.2 megs. Okay. Alright, if you exporting and it includes the, sometimes it depends how the previous artist worked, this actually includes the model in that stack. You can always just try not include the model, or if that breaks things, in my case I'll probably just take that into Maya and delete all the faces minus just one face. That way it retains its presence in the stack. Sometimes that's required, but you don't have all that unnecessary geometry, you're just having one face. But that's another topic I think I've covered in another video. Alright, yeah, that's it. So we covered basically how to move things when we have, what was that called? Yeah, when we have those constraints on the rig controls. And I've also explained how to copy keyframes, paste keyframes, and I covered how to break handles and look for jittering. And then lastly, just on how to export, that it actually exports the bones and the animation. Okay, I trust this helps. It definitely helped me, and this is just a little vlog, a little journal for myself, just to remember all these little, fun troubleshooting tricks. Take care.